The grand council room was filled with murmurs and whispers, the atmosphere thick with tension. High-ranking alien officials sat at the long, circular table, their eyes darting between each other. A quiet hum of uncertainty floated in the air, for tonight was different. The usual discussions of intergalactic politics and trade were put on hold as an unexpected guest had entered the room. A small alien child from the distant planet, Zora. The child, who had been brought in as a guest by the Queen herself, stood in the center of the room, her large, bright eyes scanning the crowd nervously. She was an unusual creature, with soft blue skin that shimmered under the soft lights and long, silvery hair that flowed like liquid moonlight. Despite her gentle appearance, her presence seemed to command attention, as if she carried the weight of a million unspoken stories. But it wasn't her appearance that had everyone in the room so intrigued. It was her words. The Queen, seated at the head of the table, stared down at the child, her face unreadable. This alien was no ordinary guest. She had come from a far-off world, one that had faced devastation and war. The Queen had chosen to bring her along as a symbol of unity, a way to show the other leaders that peace was possible even with the most distant of civilizations. But now, as she watched the child shift uncomfortably, she wondered if her decision had been wise. "Tell them what you wanted to say, child." The Queen's voice rang out sharp and commanding, yet strangely gentle. The room fell silent as the child hesitated, looking down at the floor. She seemed smaller than she really was, the weight of her thoughts heavy on her tiny shoulders. But then, with a deep breath, she spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "I want the scary human to tuck me in," she said. The words, simple as they were, echoed through the room like a loud crash. Several of the officials exchanged confused glances, unsure whether they had heard correctly. The Queen's eyebrows raised in shock, her usual composure slipping for just a moment. "The scary human?" one of the officials dared to ask. "What do you mean by that?" The child glanced up, her eyes wide with fear. "The one with the strange, loud voice," she explained, her words hesitant. "The human who smells of the stars and the ground. He makes me feel safe." The room went even quieter. The scary human the child was referring to was a member of the human delegation, one of the many who had arrived with the Queen's party. He was unlike the other humans, tall, imposing, with dark hair and sharp features that seemed to unsettle everyone who met him. His eyes, cold and piercing, were the things that made the alien child call him scary, but it wasn't fear that she felt when she looked at him. It was something else. The officials were still unsure what to make of it. The Queen's lips parted, but no words came out. She had never heard anything like this. It wasn't normal for an alien child to seek comfort from a human, especially not this one. The Queen, who was used to seeing strength and authority, had never encountered something as vulnerable as this, but she knew she had to remain calm. "You wish for the human too?" "What?" the Queen asked, her voice steady, though the intrigue was clear in her tone. The child's shoulders sagged with a mixture of relief and nervousness. "Tuck me in like a mother would," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "He makes me feel calm. I want him to be there when I sleep." The Queen could hardly believe it. The room was filled with stunned silence. The idea of a human, one of the feared and untrusted species, being chosen by an alien child for something so intimate and tender, was incomprehensible. How could it be that this human, whose race had only recently made contact with the galaxy, could inspire such trust in one of her people? The other officials exchanged puzzled glances, and it was clear they were waiting for the Queen to speak. She could sense the unease in the room. There were many questions, but she herself had no answers. This situation was unlike any she had faced before. She had brought the human delegation for diplomacy, to foster cooperation and understanding between their worlds. But now, with the child's request hanging in the air, she realized just how complicated the road to peace might be. Her eyes locked with the child's, and for a long moment, the Queen didn't know what to say. What was it about this human that made the child feel safe? Why did the child want him, of all people, to be the one to tuck her in? And more importantly, What would happen if she allowed it? The Queen's mind was racing, but she could not ignore the weight of the child's request. It was clear that this wasn't just a simple plea. It was something more, a sign of trust, of connection, and perhaps even the key to something larger than she could comprehend. With a final, measured sigh, the Queen spoke, her voice soft but firm. "If this human can bring you peace," she said, "then we will make it happen. But understand this, child, there may be more at play here than you realize." And with that, the council room fell into an uneasy silence, as everyone waited to see what would happen next. The Queen knew that the request was just the beginning of something far bigger. The future of the galaxy was now at stake, and it all started with a simple, unlikely request from an alien child. The days that followed the child's unusual request were filled with tension and confusion. The Queen, despite her calm exterior, found herself troubled by the growing questions surrounding the scary human. No one could explain why this one human seemed to hold such a strange influence over the alien child. The child, once full of fear and uncertainty, now seemed oddly comforted by the presence of this human, as though he had become her protector. It was unsettling for the Queen, and she knew she had to understand this connection if she was to maintain control over the fragile peace between their worlds. In the days that followed, the Queen ordered an investigation into the human delegation. The reports, however, gave her little insight. The human's file was sparse. His name was Iran, a relatively new recruit among the human delegation, having only arrived recently. There was little more to know about him, other than the fact that he had volunteered for this mission, and that he had shown little fear when interacting with alien species. Most notably, he had gained the attention of the child, a creature from an entirely different world. It didn't make sense to the Queen. She had heard of the humans, primitive, emotional, and unpredictable, but she had never expected them to have such an effect on one of her people. She had believed them to be weak, their lack of understanding of the galaxy's vastness something to be pitied. Yet here, in front of her, was this quiet, unassuming human who had somehow managed to bewitch an alien child, the very one who had once been so fearful of everything outside her own species. The Queen's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. She looked up to see a familiar face, Veldar, her most trusted advisor and closest confidant. He entered the chamber and bowed respectfully, his dark eyes gleaming with curiosity. Veldar had always been loyal, a fierce defender of the Queen's decisions, but even he seemed unsettled by the events of the past few days. "Your Majesty," Veldar said, his voice low, "I have spoken with the human, Aaron, I believe his name is." The Queen raised an eyebrow. "And what did you learn?" "He is peculiar," Veldar continued, choosing his words carefully. "He does not seem afraid of us, nor does he hold any ill will toward our people. In fact, he seems to have no real interest in power or politics. But there's something strange about him, something that I can't quite place." The Queen leaned forward, her interest piqued. "What do you mean?" Veldar paused, his gaze shifting to the floor, as if contemplating his next words. "When I spoke to him, it was as if he could see through me. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt as though he knew exactly what I was thinking. And when I asked him about the child, about why he might have such an effect on her, he simply said this: sometimes a connection doesn't need an explanation." The Queen's mind whirled. She had never heard such an answer from any of her advisors or peers. Everything about this human seemed contradictory. He wasn't like the others, the ones who sought power or revenge. He wasn't like the aliens who schemed for dominance. But why then did the child trust him so completely? "I want to speak to him myself," the Queen said abruptly, rising from her throne. "Where is he?" Veldar nodded and motioned toward the hallway. "He is in the guest quarters, awaiting your summons." The Queen walked briskly through the ornate corridors of the palace, her thoughts racing. What could Aaron have that the others didn't? What was it about him that made him so different? Her mind kept returning to the child's words. "I want the scary human to tuck me in." What did the child see in this human that no one else had noticed? When she reached the guest quarters, she found the door slightly ajar. She knocked softly, but there was no answer. The queen pushed it open and stepped inside. There, standing by the window, was Aaron. He was gazing out at the stars, his posture relaxed as if he had been waiting for her all along. The room was simple, with only the essentials: a bed, a desk, and a chair. There were no luxury items or decorations, and yet the air around him seemed charged, filled with something unseen but undeniable. Aaron turned as she entered, his expression calm but not surprised. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice soft but firm. "I've been expecting you." The queen's heart skipped a beat. How did he know? "You've been expecting me?" she asked, her voice cold, though her curiosity was undeniable. Aaron smiled faintly. "You have many questions, and I have answers. But first, you should know, what you seek is not as simple as you believe. You ask about the child. You wonder why she trusts me. But the truth is, I don't know either. I just know that when I met her, something clicked, something that I can't explain." The queen felt a strange tension building in the air between them. There was no malice in his voice, no hidden agenda. It was as if he was speaking the truth, yet it was a truth she didn't fully understand. "You claim that you have no answers?" the queen said, her voice laced with both frustration and intrigue. "But this child, my people, they are my responsibility. If you are the reason for her change, I must know what it is." Aaron stepped closer, his gaze intense yet not threatening. "Perhaps it's not what I am, Your Majesty," he said, "but what I can offer. Sometimes people, alien or human, need something that others cannot provide. I didn't come here to conquer or to control. I came here because I believed in something greater. Maybe that's what the child sees." The queen's mind was spinning. She had expected confrontation, a battle of wits, but instead she found herself at a crossroads. Aaron wasn't the kind of threat she had anticipated. He was something else, something she wasn't sure how to face. "Tell me more," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What do you really want here?" He simply smiled. "I want the same thing you do, Your Majesty. Peace. But peace can only come when we are willing to trust each other, even when it seems impossible." The queen stared at him, unsure whether she was dealing with a man or something far more dangerous. The queen's mind buzzed as she left the guest quarters, her thoughts torn between disbelief and curiosity. Aaron, the human, was like no one she had ever met. Every word he spoke seemed laced with an unseen depth, something intangible but undeniably powerful. He didn't act like the other humans she had encountered. He wasn't pushy, calculating, or eager to prove himself. Instead, there was a quiet confidence in him, an unsettling calm that seemed to seep into the very air around him. As the days passed, the queen found herself observing him more closely. Aaron moved through the palace with an ease that seemed to defy his outsider status. The guards who were meant to keep watch over him often found themselves distracted, unable to focus on their duties when he passed by. It wasn't that he was doing anything unusual, he simply was, but his presence had a way of drawing attention, like a magnet pulling everything toward him. It was as if he exuded an energy that made people forget their roles and duties, even for a moment. But what was even more perplexing was his connection to the child, Sora. Despite the queen's best efforts to separate them, the child insisted on being near him. It was no longer about protection. It was as if she sought comfort in his presence, comfort that her own kind could not provide. The queen's concern grew. She had always prided herself on being able to read people, to understand their motives and ambitions. But Aaron, he was an enigma. Even now, as she sat at her desk reviewing reports and strategizing for the upcoming diplomatic summit, her thoughts kept drifting back to him. The way he made the child feel safe, the way he seemed to understand her, it troubled her. "Your Majesty," Veldar's voice broke through her reverie. "We've received another report from the human delegation." The queen glanced up, her brow furrowing. "What now?" Veldar approached, holding a small datapad in his hands. "The humans have sent a request to meet with you again. They want to discuss something of importance, something related to Aaron." The queen's eyes narrowed. "What do they want?" Veldar hesitated before responding. "They didn't say, but they requested your personal attendance." The queen stood up, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on her shoulders. "I'll meet them," she said firmly, her voice betraying none of the uncertainty that churned inside her. Prepare the conference room. As she made her way to the meeting room, she couldn't shake the feeling that the human's presence was slowly unraveling something deep and hidden within her. She had always believed that power was a clear thing, something to be taken and held onto tightly. But now, with Aaron in the picture, she wondered if perhaps power wasn't just about force and control. Could it be something else? Could it be about trust, understanding, connection? The conference room was empty when she arrived. The humans were punctual as always, but the air was thick with tension. The moment the door slid open, Aaron stepped in, his usual calm demeanor on full display. The Queen had to remind herself that she was in control of this situation. She had to remain focused. "Your Majesty," Aaron said, bowing slightly, his voice warm, yet measured. "I appreciate you meeting with us again. There's something important we need to discuss." The Queen studied him closely, noting the slight shift in his posture. There was something different about him today, something even more compelling. She motioned for him to sit. "What is it, Aaron?" He hesitated for a moment before speaking. "It's about the child, Zora. She's not the only one who's been affected by this. Connection between us." The Queen's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Aaron's expression softened, and for the first time the Queen saw a flicker of something. Was it vulnerability? "I'm not just here to be a diplomat or an emissary," he said quietly. "There's a reason I came. Something I've been chosen for. It's not just about helping the child. It's about something far bigger." The Queen's mind raced. "What are you talking about?" He leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "The universe is shifting, Your Majesty. There's a new force rising, something ancient and powerful beyond anything we've known, and it's been calling to me." The room seemed to close in around them as the Queen struggled to make sense of his words. "A force? What kind of force?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Aaron's eyes grew darker, his tone more intense. "A force that can change everything. A force that can either unite or destroy, and I'm the one who has been chosen to either wield it or stop it." The Queen took a step back, a cold shiver running down her spine. "You chosen? By who?" Aaron didn't answer immediately. He simply stared at her, his eyes filled with something unreadable. "It doesn't matter who chose me. What matters is that I am here now, and the path ahead is one we must walk together. The child, Zora, she's connected to this force, as am I. And so are you." The Queen's chest tightened as she processed his words. She had heard whispers of ancient forces before, of powers that lay dormant in the far reaches of the galaxy. But she had never believed them to be real. Not until now. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" the Queen demanded, her voice sharp with suspicion. "Why keep this secret?" Aaron's gaze softened, almost apologetic. "Because I had to understand it myself first. And now that I do, I can't hide it any longer. This is bigger than us. This is bigger than anything we've known. And the only way to stop the coming storm is for all of us to stand together." The Queen's heart pounded in her chest. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, and for the first time she felt a surge of fear. Not for herself, but for the future. The galaxy was on the brink of something she could not yet understand, and it seemed that Aaron was the key to everything. The Queen paced restlessly through her chambers, the soft hum of the palace around her almost drowned out by the chaos of her thoughts. What had Aaron meant when he said that they were all connected to this force? She had heard of many things, diplomatic strategies, alliances, wars fought over power. But the notion of an ancient mystical force controlling the fate of the galaxy? That was a new concept, and one that left her uneasy. For days now, the Queen had been grappling with the truth of Aaron's words. The child, Zora, had been acting differently since their last meeting. She was calmer, more at peace, as if some unseen weight had been lifted from her small shoulders. And yet the child's newfound tranquility only deepened the Queen's suspicions. The Queen had watched her closely, noting how Zora would sometimes glance at Aaron with an almost reverential look in her eyes, as though he were more than just a simple human. Could it really be true that Aaron was connected to something? Beyond? Was he truly the key to stopping whatever was coming, or was he simply a pawn, unaware of the role he was playing in a much larger game? The Queen's thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. "Your Majesty," Feldar's voice came from the other side. "Enter," the Queen responded sharply, her tone betraying her inner turmoil. Feldar stepped into the room, his expression grave. "There's something you need to see," he said, his voice low. The Queen raised an eyebrow, feeling a sense of foreboding. "What is it?" He handed her a data pad, and as she glanced at the screen, her eyes widened in disbelief. The report detailed a series of strange events that had been occurring on the outer edges of their territory, events that had been linked to the human delegation. One of the ships carrying humans had mysteriously disappeared, and the planet it had been orbiting was now showing unusual readings. There were signs of energy fluctuations, as if some kind of force were at work, something beyond their understanding. "This is impossible," the Queen muttered. "How could they have gone undetected? How did we not know about this?" Veldar's voice grew quieter. The disappearance was only discovered by accident. It seems that the human delegation had no part in it, but their presence coincides with these strange occurrences. There's more. The energy readings from the planet, they match the exact frequency of the force Aaron spoke of. The Queen's chest tightened. Her thoughts raced as she processed this new information. It wasn't just an idle threat. The very fabric of reality seemed to be shifting, and it was all centered around Aaron and his strange connection with the alien child. She had to get to the bottom of this no matter what the cost. "I want a full investigation," she ordered. "Send a team to the planet. I want to know what's happening there." Veldar nodded and began to leave, but the Queen called after him. "And Aaron? What should we do about him?" Veldar paused at the door. "I don't know, Your Majesty, but the child trusts him, and that is something we cannot ignore, perhaps. He truly is the key to understanding all of this." The Queen remained silent as Veldar left, her mind a whirlpool of uncertainty. Her first instinct was to trust no one, especially not a human who had so easily wormed his way into the heart of the child. But she couldn't deny the strange pull she felt toward him, a force that went beyond diplomacy and politics. There was something more, something deeper. Later that night, the Queen found herself walking alone through the palace corridors. The weight of the universe seemed to press down on her with every step she took. She needed answers. She needed to confront Aaron once more and get to the truth, before it was too late. When she arrived at his quarters, the door was slightly ajar. She entered without knocking, the tension in her body palpable. Aaron was sitting by the window again, staring out at the stars, his posture relaxed but his expression distant. He turned slowly as she entered, as though he had been expecting her all along. "Your Majesty," he said softly, his voice still carrying that strange, calm energy. "I've been waiting for you." "Enough games, Aaron," the Queen said, her voice sharp. "Tell me what is really going on." "The reports, the energy fluctuations, the disappearance of the ship. You are connected to all of this, aren't you?" Aaron didn't flinch at her sudden confrontation. Instead, he simply nodded, his gaze never leaving hers. "Yes," he said quietly. "It's all connected, and it's something bigger than both of us." The Queen's heart pounded in her chest. She took a step closer, her eyes narrowing. "Explain yourself. What is this force you speak of? What do you want from us?" Aaron sighed deeply, standing up from his seat. "I don't want anything, Your Majesty. I'm simply here to make sure that this force, this power, doesn't fall into the wrong hands." "The wrong hands?" The Queen repeated, incredulous. "You mean, my hands?" Aaron shook his head. "No, not yours. But there are others. More dangerous forces, who would use this power to destroy everything. I'm trying to stop them." "Stop them?" The Queen stepped back, trying to process his words. "You're telling me that you, a single human, are the only one who can stop this? That you alone have the power to control this force?" Aaron looked at her with an unreadable expression. "It's not about controlling it. It's about understanding it, and that's where you come in." The Queen's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He stepped forward, his voice barely a whisper. "You have a part to play in this, Your Majesty. You, the child, and I, we are connected. Our fates are intertwined, and if we don't act now, everything will be lost." The Queen's head spun with the weight of his words. She had suspected that something extraordinary was happening, but now it felt as though the very foundation of her world was shaking beneath her feet. Aaron wasn't just a human. He was something more, something that could either save the galaxy or bring it to ruin. And with the child's trust in him growing stronger by the day, the Queen had no choice but to decide where her allegiance lay. The Queen couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind raced with the possibilities, the unanswered questions that had been plaguing her for days. Aaron's words haunted her. We are connected. Our fates are intertwined. What did that mean? How could a human, someone so insignificant in the grand scope of the galaxy, have such an impact on her world, on the child, and on the entire universe? She stood by her balcony, gazing out at the stars. The vastness of space was both beautiful and terrifying, a reminder of how small they all were in the grand scheme of things. Yet, in this moment, it felt like the stars were watching her, waiting, judging. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her. She was the queen, the ruler of an empire spanning light years, and yet there was something out of her control, something she couldn't even begin to understand. She turned sharply as the sound of footsteps approached. Veldar. He had been her trusted advisor for years, but she could see the tension in his eyes as he stepped into the room. Your Majesty, he said, bowing low. There's something urgent we must discuss. The Queen motioned for him to speak. What is it? Veldar hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. It's the humans. The ones that accompanied Aaron. They've been acting strangely. There have been reports of unusual behavior from the human delegation, actions that seem deliberate. The Queen's eyebrows furrowed. Deliberate how? Veldar's expression was grim. There's been a rise in secret meetings among the humans. They're communicating with other species that have had no contact with us. They've been sending coded messages and we've intercepted a few. The content is troubling. They speak of an impending event, something that could change everything. The Queen's heart skipped a beat. What kind of event? I'm not sure, Your Majesty, Veldar replied. But the messages are all centered around Iran. They believe he is the key to this event, and it's clear that some of them are not aligned with his goals. The Queen's thoughts raced. The human delegation had seemed so harmless at first, just another group of diplomats eager to strengthen ties with the galaxy's ruling species. But now it appeared there were factions within their ranks, factions that were planning something. Something dangerous. Where is Aaron now? The Queen asked, her voice cold. Veldar's gaze shifted toward the door. He's in the council chamber. He requested a private meeting with you. It seems he's aware of our suspicions. The Queen's stomach tightened. She had to confront him, had to demand the truth. The humans weren't what they seemed. But could she trust Aaron? Or was he part of something larger, something darker? Prepare the council chamber, the Queen said, her voice steely. I'll meet him there. The Queen arrived in the council chamber, her mind heavy with thoughts of betrayal and uncertainty. Aaron was already there, standing by the large window overlooking the vast expanse of space. He didn't turn as she entered. His posture relaxed, as if the weight of the universe didn't rest on his shoulders. She took a deep breath before speaking. You requested to speak with me. Aaron finally turned to face her, his expression unreadable. Yes, Your Majesty. There are things you need to know. Things that I've kept hidden from you. But now, it's time. The Queen crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. Why have you been so elusive? Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning? Aaron's eyes softened, a faint trace of regret in his expression. Because I wasn't sure I could trust you. Not until now. Trust me? The Queen's voice was sharp, the words cutting through the tension in the room. You expect me to trust you after everything that's happened? After the reports, the disappearances, the strange behavior of your people? How can I trust you, Aaron? Aaron's gaze didn't waver, his voice calm yet firm. Because, Your Majesty, I am not like the others. I wasn't sent here by the humans to manipulate or control. I came to warn you. The Queen raised an eyebrow, her skepticism clear. Warn me? About what? He stepped closer, his expression growing more serious. There's a threat. A real one. The force I've been telling you about, it's not just a cosmic anomaly. It's an ancient power that has been dormant for millennia, and now it's waking up. The Queen's breath caught in her throat. Waking up? What do you mean? And why didn't you tell me sooner? Aaron looked away as though struggling to find the right words. Because I was only just beginning to understand it myself. This force is connected to the child, to Zora, and to me. We are the ones who will either stop it or unleash it on the galaxy. The Queen's mind reeled. What do you mean, unleash it? You've been hiding this power from me, and now you're telling me that it's connected to Zora? Yes, Aaron replied, his voice low. Zora is not just a child. She's a vessel, one that contains the key to this power. But she doesn't know it yet. She can't. And if the wrong people get their hands on her, they will use her to unleash destruction. The same destruction that nearly wiped out the ancient civilizations eons ago. The Queen's heart pounded in her chest. You're saying that Zora is dangerous? No, Aaron said quickly, shaking his head. Not dangerous. But the power she holds is, and I'm the only one who can help her control it. The only one who understands how to guide her through it. The Queen felt a chill spread through her. She had suspected something dark was at play, but this was more than she could have ever imagined. And the humans? Are they part of this? Aaron's expression hardened. Some of them. They think they can control the power for their own gain. But they don't understand what they're dealing with. And that's why I'm here, to stop them before it's too late. The Queen stood in stunned silence. The stakes were higher than she had ever realized. And now she had to decide. Could she trust Aaron to save them all? Or had she placed her faith in the wrong person? The Queen stood frozen, her mind unable to fully process the magnitude of Aaron's revelation. Zora, the child who had trusted him, had become the key to something far beyond their understanding. An ancient, dormant power that could reshape the fate of the galaxy. It was clear now that everything she had thought she knew was a lie. The force that had seemed so distant, so abstract, was right here in front of her, hidden in the delicate form of a child. Aaron's words echoed in her mind as she struggled to regain her composure. I'm the only one who can help her control it. The weight of his statement hung heavy in the air, and despite herself, the Queen felt a pang of doubt. Could she trust him? Could she trust anyone at this point? The council chamber felt colder now, its walls pressing in on her as the reality of the situation began to settle in. The child was more than just a symbol of peace. She was a weapon, one that could either save or destroy them all. The Queen knew that her people, her empire, depended on her decisions. She couldn't afford to make a mistake now. She took a deep breath and stepped toward Aaron, her eyes narrowing. You say you're the only one who can stop this, but how do I know I can trust you? You've hidden the truth from me for too long. I've allowed you to stay here, to gain the child's trust, and now you tell me that you're the only one who can protect us from what's coming. What makes you so special, Aaron? Aaron didn't flinch. Instead, he met her gaze with a steady, almost sad look. What makes me special, Your Majesty, is that I'm not bound by the same things that bind your people. I'm not bound by politics, by power struggles, or by the greed that drives so many in the galaxy. My people, the humans, have been preparing for this moment for generations. I was chosen for this task long before I ever set foot on your world. The Queen felt a cold knot tighten in her chest. Chosen? By whom? Aaron's expression grew darker, his eyes flickering with an emotion the Queen couldn't quite place. By a force far older than any of us. And that's the truth you need to understand. The power I'm talking about, it's not something that can be controlled. It's something that must be understood. And that's why I'm here. Then why the secrecy? The Queen asked, her voice low. Why not tell me everything from the start? Aaron sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly as if the burden of his knowledge had become too heavy to bear. Because I didn't understand it myself until recently. I couldn't explain it, not even to myself. But I know this now, Your Majesty. The moment Zora unlocked that power, everything changed, and the galaxy will never be the same. The Queen felt a chill run through her veins. Zora had unlocked something that no one understood, and the child's innocent plea to have Aaron tuck her in now seemed even more ominous. Was it really just about comfort? Or had Zora been unknowingly tapping into this ancient power all along? I need to know more, the Queen said firmly, her voice taking on an edge of authority. I need to know how this force works. How we can stop it from falling into the wrong hands. Aaron nodded slowly, his gaze shifting to the window where the stars flickered like distant beacons of light. I can't promise you that this will be easy. What Zora holds inside her, what I've been trained to understand, it's something ancient. It can't be controlled by force or willpower. It's a force of balance, of equilibrium, and it's capable of both creation and destruction. The same energy that can heal entire worlds can just as easily wipe them out. The Queen felt the weight of his words settle over her like a storm cloud. And what happens if this power is unleashed? What if Zora doesn't know how to control it? Aaron's face darkened. If she doesn't learn to control it, if the wrong hands get to her, this galaxy will be consumed. Not by war, but by something far worse. a darkness older than even the stars themselves that seeks only destruction. It's been dormant for millennia, but it's waking up now, and Zora, whether she knows it or not, is the key to everything. The Queen's mind raced, her thoughts clashing like waves against rocks. The implications were staggering. Zora wasn't just a child caught in a strange intergalactic experiment. She was a living conduit to a force that could either save or doom them all. "What do we do now?" the Queen asked, her voice strained. "How do we stop this before it's too late?" Aaron stepped closer, his voice lowering. "We can't do this alone. Zora needs to be trained. She needs to learn how to harness the power within her, but she can't do it without guidance. That's where I come in. But there are others who want to use her for their own gain. I've seen it, Your Majesty. They're already moving against us." "Who?" the Queen demanded, her eyes narrowing. "Who would do such a thing?" Aaron's expression hardened. "Some of the humans who came with me. They believe they can use Zora to dominate the galaxy. They think they can control the Force, but they're wrong. It's not something you can control. It's something that has to be respected. If they succeed, we'll be plunged into an age of chaos, and it will be my fault for not stopping it sooner." The Queen stood in silence, the weight of the truth crashing down on her like a tidal wave. She had known that diplomacy and politics were fraught with danger, but this was a different kind of battle, one that could change the very fabric of existence. "I don't have much time," Aaron continued, his voice strained. "Neither do you. If we don't act now, the power inside Zora will awaken fully, and it will be unstoppable." The Queen's heart pounded in her chest. Everything she had worked for, everything she had believed in, was now at the mercy of a child. A child who was unknowingly carrying the fate of the galaxy in her hands. "What do we do next?" the Queen asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Aaron stepped forward, his eyes locking with hers. "We protect her, Your Majesty. We train her, and we keep her safe, because if we don't, the galaxy will fall, and we'll be the ones to watch it burn." The Queen sat in her private chamber, the weight of the universe pressing down on her shoulders. The truth was undeniable now. Zora wasn't just a child. She was the fulcrum upon which the balance of the galaxy teetered. If they couldn't protect her, if they couldn't guide her through the power inside her, everything they had worked for, everything they had fought to build, would crumble. The Queen's mind raced. Her empire was vast, its reach spanning thousands of worlds, yet none of it mattered in the face of this ancient, uncontrollable force. Zora had unlocked something far beyond her comprehension, something that could either save them all or tear everything apart. The Queen had seen the darkness that waited in the wings, the shadowy figures that moved against them, watching their every move, waiting for the right moment to strike. Aaron had been clear about that. The others, the rogue factions within the human delegation, would stop at nothing to take control of Zora and the power she carried. They would use her to dominate, to reshape the galaxy in their image. The Queen had heard their whispers, intercepted their secret communications. It was only a matter of time before they made their move. The Queen couldn't allow that. She couldn't risk everything on the chance that Zora would learn to control the power inside her. The child was untrained, too innocent to understand the consequences of unleashing such a force. The Queen's decision weighed heavily on her heart. She had always prided herself on making difficult choices, but this one felt different. It wasn't just about diplomacy or politics. It was about survival. A sharp knock interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called out, her voice steady despite the chaos inside her. Veldar entered, his face grim. He didn't need to say anything. The look in his eyes said it all. "They're coming," Veldar said softly, as though the words themselves were heavy with doom. The Queen nodded slowly, rising from her chair. "I know, it's time." Aaron had already made his choice. He had agreed to help protect Zora, to train her and guide her through the awakening power inside her. But the Queen knew that even he wasn't invincible. The rogue factions were already moving, sending agents to capture Zora and bend her to their will. The time for secrecy was over. The Queen turned toward the window, her gaze sweeping over the sprawling city below. The stars twinkled above, distant and cold, as if they were watching her every move. She knew the stakes. If Zora's power fell into the wrong hands, everything would be lost. The Queen had always believed that she could control any situation, that her empire's might was enough to overcome any obstacle. But this was different. She turned to Veldar. Prepare the fleet, she said, her voice unwavering. We leave immediately. Veldar's eyes widened. You can't be serious, Your Majesty. We don't know who we're up against. We don't even know where they are yet. The Queen's expression hardened. I don't care. We're not waiting for them to strike first. We go now. We protect Zora no matter the cost. Veldar hesitated for a moment, clearly torn. And Aaron? Should we trust him? The Queen's gaze softened for a moment. He is the only one who can help us now. I trust him, even if I don't fully understand everything. But we can't let him be alone in this. We need to move swiftly. Hours later, the fleet was assembled, a vast armada of ships prepared for whatever lay ahead. The Queen stood on the bridge of her flagship, her eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy, her mind calculating their next move. They were headed to Zora's location, where she had been kept in relative safety for the time being. But it wouldn't be safe for long. The rogue factions had already infiltrated their ranks, and it was only a matter of time before they made their move. Aaron had sent word that he and Zora were ready to leave the planet and join the fleet, but the Queen knew that time was running out. As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, the Queen's thoughts turned inward. Was this the right choice? Was she doing the right thing by leading her people into the unknown? The answer was unclear, but one thing was certain. She couldn't afford to let fear dictate her actions. The galaxy was in her hands, and the power that Zora held was not something she could ignore. No matter what happened, no matter the cost, she would protect the child. She would protect the future. When they arrived at the designated rendezvous point, the Queen received word that Zora and Aaron had just boarded a nearby shuttle. They would meet them in the next hour. As the minutes passed, the tension in the fleet grew. Every officer, every soldier was on edge. They knew that this could be the turning point. It could be the moment when the galaxy was saved or when it was destroyed. Finally, the shuttle arrived, and the Queen's eyes immediately locked onto the figure standing next to Aaron, the child. Zora looked more fragile than ever, but her eyes burned with an intensity that seemed to carry the weight of the galaxy. The power inside her was unmistakable. Even the Queen could feel it, the hum of energy that seemed to vibrate in the air around her. As Zora stepped onto the bridge, she hesitated for a moment, looking up at the Queen. There was something strange in her gaze, a mix of innocence and knowing, as if she understood the gravity of the situation better than any of them. I'm ready, Zora said softly, her voice small but filled with determination. The Queen nodded, her heart heavy. Good, we're all ready. Now we move forward. Together. As the fleet prepared to set course for the unknown, the Queen made a silent vow. They would face whatever came their way. No matter how powerful or dangerous it was, they would protect Zora, and they would protect the galaxy, because if they didn't, there would be nothing left to save.